Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Ghost here, and today we're going to do a pretty straightforward stage 41 Proxima Midnight, but we're going to be using Captain Marvel with 2 supports and no strikers. Now, you may be saying that Cynic Alex, Captain Marvel deals energy damage, and Proxima Midnight primarily is completed by characters who deal high physical damage, so you're going to have a really hard time doing this, and you'd be right. And I'm going to show you that right now, because I'm an idiot, and the part of this, the start of this video is obviously bait. So we're going to use the 5th skill, we're going to transition into the 4th skill, we're going to transition into the 3rd skill, sorry, and then the 4th skill. And you can see the damage is not bad because it's a pretty low stage for me at 41 with 2 supports, with a tier 3 character, with a CTP of Rage, and with my level of Valor and my raid level. So the damage is not bad, but what you just saw there is actually something totally different, and what you're seeing right now is something totally different. I'm doing the stage without doing Captain Marvel's 5th skill, and what it actually does, as you can see, is it doesn't add any of the energy damage to the attack. It doesn't recalculate the damage using energy. It actually does the base typing, which I guess is a percentage of her energy attack converted into physical. So because the full amount of attack is being converted into physical damage rather than being partially physical and mostly energy, she actually does insane damage to Proxima. And so you can actually, I mean, I don't know how much of this is the CTP of Rage and how much of this is her own abilities, and it's primarily on the 3rd and 4th skills. I don't notice much of a jump in damage, or much of a reduction, I should say, when I use her 2nd skills and 1st skills in binary form versus non-binary form. And of course there is a disadvantage to using, or to not using binary form, because you don't get all the buffs, you don't get the guard hit, you don't get the enhanced form, but it's actually pretty impressive how much damage she does. Now I'm showing you guys this primarily because I think it's really cool. I love finding little quirks about characters that, you know, I think very few people knew, because I had no idea. This was actually brought to my attention by someone, I think on Twitter, and even though it says energy damage, it's clearly doing mostly physical without Radiant Form. So Radiant Form is obviously adding, or at least calculating how much damage it does as a percentage of the energy attack in energy damage rather than physical, whereas I guess without her Radiant Form, it's mostly physical and much less energy. So we're actually going to try a much more competitive stage for my level of Valor now. I'm probably going to get Blade Twistered a few times, so it's kind of annoying as hell, but we're going to do the same team, and we're going to add strikers this time. I just want to show you a little bit more of a competitive situation, so you can see kind of that this is still viable. It's not just viable because I have a huge raid level and I'm using double strikers. It's actually viable even when I'm pushing, and stage 50 is fairly challenging for pretty much any character against Proxima. She's one of the more difficult and one of the more hard-hitting world boss ultimates, and especially with energy damage being the primary source of Captain Marvel's damage. I mean, even her leadership buffs her energy damage. You're going to see that, especially coupled with the all defense down that some of these characters bring as strikers, she definitely can pull her weight. And maybe for those of you that struggle against Proxima but you have a tier 3 Captain Marvel, just don't use her 5th skill, man. The 6th skill, as you'll see, still has pretty low damage because it's almost entirely typed as energy. Now, for those of you that may be confused, I just want to clear it up really quickly. It's not that you should give Captain Marvel physical attack Uru or anything like that. It's just that her damage is either the damage of your skill is either a percentage of your attack stat as physical or as energy. That's calculated after it calculates whatever your attack stat is. So your attack stat is whatever it is, and it can't be changed. It's either physical or energy attack, and that's on your main page of your character's kind of bio. That doesn't change. It doesn't matter if your skills deal energy or physical. It stays the same. But what it gets converted into is either physical or energy damage, which is basically just depending on what your skill does. So that's just the way that Netmarble codes it, and that's why you'll still give a character like, let's say, Iron Fist, you'll still give him energy damage Uru, even though some of his attacks are physical and they do physical damage. And there are other examples of things like that. Minerva is another very good example, probably a better example than Iron Fist. You give her physical attack Uru, you don't give her energy attack Uru, but for the most part, especially with her uniform, her skills deal energy damage. It gets, that was so dumb. It gets recalculated as energy damage. So you can actually see, we would need to switch here to avoid dying. I don't really mind dying here because I've proven the point, but she can absolutely clear stage 50, and I've actually cleared stage 50 with Captain Marvel using this strategy, not using her 5th skill, which is actually quite wild, and it adds an additional layer of depth to the character. It adds an additional layer of value to the character for World Boss Ultimate, because now she can not only clear the energy stages like, Thanos and Cull Obsidian, but she can now go and clear Proxima as well. She can even clear Ebony Maw. Now, I also want to show you guys this trick because I'm not sure how much of this damage is coming from or is being augmented by her CTP of Rage. So I actually want to ask those of you who have a tier 3 Captain Marvel, specifically a tier 3 Captain Marvel with comparable, I would say, and it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but a comparable amount of energy attack, around 30,000 or between 30 and 34,000. If it's less than that, then your cards might hold you back from doing a fair comparison. But if you could do a tier 3 Captain Marvel comparison like I did on a stage, 40 or 50, maybe 40 Proxima without a CTP of Rage, and let me know what you find, because this could be a really great boon for the character. Even at tier 2, it might make her more flexible, and it doesn't just stop at World Boss Ultimate. You can also then take her into things like Shadowland, and you can do additional stages that you otherwise would not be able to do, and you can play her even at tier 1, for example, with the uniform. You can play her more safely, because if you go into a stage that has physical reflect, just go into binary form and attack, and you'll do energy damage. Of course, you don't take damage when you're iframing, but still, it's better to play it safe in case there's gaps in the iframes or you get interrupted or something, or some sort of weird thing happens. But additionally, for stages that have energy reflect, where you otherwise couldn't use Captain Marvel because you think, okay, she's an energy damage dealing character exclusively, no, that's actually not the case. You can actually go ahead and use her attacks without going into radiant form, and you'll be able to do mostly physical damage, avoid that reflect, hopefully, and then you'll still be able to kill them. Additionally, this may provide, maybe not now, but maybe in the future when we see a few more of these characters crop up, hopefully, some interesting counterplay if there's a stronger character a la Colossus that can take advantage of that physical reflect. Because if you can, withstand, if you can survive Captain Marvel's first radiant form and it's on cooldown, you're going to have about, 7 to 8 seconds where she's not in radiant form but she's attacking you. You can basically get her to physically reflect, and then you can, possibly kill her. It's unlikely because, like I said, she still has iframes on 3 and 4 for the most part, so there's very few gaps where you can kind of take advantage of that. But it would be nice to see a character that could reflect through iframes to really directly punish characters who stack a bunch of damage on one type or another, whether it's all physical or all energy, and it'll also make it interesting for characters who have kind of split damage, who are normally punished. Now, Sharon Rogers is one of the few exemptions, but someone like Iron Man, for example, he's beloved, but he gets shit on a lot because he struggles in PvE content because of the fact that his damage is so split between physical and energy. And even his 5th skill, Ion Cannon, has some energy or has some physical damage kind of mixed in there. And so it'd be really nice to see a character that could reflect through iframes to really not only properly punish characters like Captain Marvel and others, but also to properly reward other characters like Iron Man who have split damage, because he'll take much less from a character who can only reflect physical or only reflect energy, because he's got that duality of damage, and it'll actually, by proxy, while it's not being introduced, the character's not being made to counter Iron Man or to interact with him, it will have a positive interaction with Iron Man over time, because then when that new character, whoever they are, or whatever, it's a reworked character, when they go ahead and counter characters like Strife, characters like Captain Marvel, then it will create a higher value as a counter for characters like Iron Man who have a split amount of damage and, split amount of physical and energy attack on their skills, not on their stats, that allow them to kind of reduce or minimize the amount of reflect. So I think it's a really cool topic. I like the concept of reflect in Marvel Future Fight. I think it's very underutilized, except for things like World Boss Ultimate, where you see characters like Cull Obsidian who basically completely reject physical damage and force you to play with energy damage. and then vice versa with Proxima. She's kind of like the opposite of Cull Obsidian. And then finding characters who can either do both types of damage equally, or they can actually swap between the different types of damage depending on what skills they focus on, or depending on having like tons of all defense down like Scarlet Witch does, or in Captain Marvel's case, just skipping one of your buff skills and suddenly you're doing tons of physical damage. So hopefully someone out there can test out the situation without a CTP of Rage, so we can confirm that it's possible to achieve without a Rage CTP. It would be kind of a bummer if all of this is only capable or only kind of useful with a CTP of Rage, but I'm gonna hold out and be optimistic with the camera off to hope that it's not the CTP of Rage and it is actually an intended design of the character to highlight the kind of awesome energy of Radiant Form, but then also to give us a creative way of avoiding physical or energy reflect, and then also those kind of physical and energy defense barriers that certain bosses put up. So hit me up in the comments down below if you are able to test it out. Definitely hit me up on Twitter if you have a picture or a video, that'd be fantastic, or Discord. Subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me, and of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.